And yes, today we will be talking about corporate social responsibility, an important topic in sustainability and business. Uh, so let's start with that. Yes, today we will talk about this, explain it, how, what kind of competence components they have, like economic, legal, ethical, and philanthropic, and we will provide examples of that. And yes, we will talk about its details. So there are some criticisms against businesses, right, in the world. What kind of criticisms, in other words, allegations are there, right? Business do that. For example, most of us sometimes are complain about these businesses, right? They don't give importance to their customers, to their consumers. They just focus on their profits, right? They don't think, they don't prioritize the society's needs, or they can damage the environment, right? They could act sometimes unethically to make more profits, and they have uh, somehow become indifferent to the problems of their environment and problems of the minorities, social groups, and social problems. So this kind of a perspective suggests that businesses should also have some responsibility against the society, right? So normally, I mean, on the paper, on the legal papers, none of the businesses are responsible for having a contribution, making a contribution to their society, right? They don't have a responsibility like that. But we expect from them, expect from them some kind of responsibility. So this is what's about its corporate social responsibility. Okay, it's a important concept, and its importance has been increasing day by day, and it requires uh, people in the businesses. Okay, it requires people in the businesses to be responsible to their social system, to their environment, their nature, to their society. Because corporates citizenship suggests that we are living in a society, and we do this job in a society, right? We do our business in an environment, and actually this environment also allows us to control some resources, to have some employees, to make our production, to sell to the people, right? Actually this society is a part of our business, so we need to somehow give them something back, right? I mean, just making profits and damaging the society, or not caring, at least not any care, providing any care to the society, is not a good thing. So there are some concepts on that corporate citizenship. I mean, like citizens are the estates, neighborhoods people, right? They work for their state, their neighborhood, their cities to increase their welfare, to increase their well-being. So just like that, corporations, businesses should also work for their societies, work for their cities, work for their neighborhood. And there are some concepts on that. What are those? Responsibility means, corporate social responsibility means there are some obligations, there are some accountabilities against the society that businesses must have, right? Responsiveness, by the way, means that to act, to take action, to engage in activities to support the society, to solve the problems of society, to contribute to society, right? And lastly, the performance, we mean outcomes and results, okay? Corporate social performance. What kind of projects do you have for society? What kind of contributions, what kind of results do we see here, right? These are all important concepts in corporate social things. And how these business criticisms become social responsibility, how does it start, right? First of all, the societal environmental factors actually lead these criticisms. In the late 60s, especially, in the late 60s, there is a huge awakening in the world, right? People were demanding more rights. People were demanding more equality. They want more equal payments. They want better conditions of working. And after the World War II, with the environment of the peace, right? There is the war has ended, and especially the people who are living in the Western countries, they enjoy a huge amount of wealth, right? They invested in many sectors. They have the global markets were very increasing largely, and people can sell their products everywhere. So there was a huge increase in the wealth of these nations, especially the United States of America and European countries, and then Japan, and then other Asian countries, right? So what did they expect from businesses? Actually, the businesses in the classical sense just work for producing something like a factory, right? They don't even care for their societies much. They didn't. But after these 60s, people have had some reactions against these corporations because they created some damage on their environment, on their nature, on their societies. They made, for example, discrimination between genders, discrimination between minorities. For example, while white people are getting more money, black people cannot in America on those times, for example, or the minorities were humiliated, or gender, right? The woman couldn't have equal opportunity in jobs. Still, there are some kind of problems, and there are some business disasters like fuel oil companies, for example. They polluted the sea, or they did damage the atmosphere, right? And the pharmaceutical companies, they had huge created huge damages on the nature because they tried many chemicals on the animals and the nature, etc. So there was huge criticisms of businesses at that time. They said that these businesses are exploiting the resources of the society, and they need to somehow change their behavior. They cannot just look at their profits. They need to be responsible. And this concern on the social environment resulted in a social contract with companies, which means that businesses are accepted to be more responsible to their environment. And corporate social responsibility was first named at these days. And then social responsiveness, social performance, corporate citizenships, like these kind of concepts become more popular. And then the main objective here, main aim here, to create a more satisfied society. And there are expectations from the businesses has increased, and it also leads more criticisms for their activities as well. So as you see here, business criticisms has led to corporations, has forced them to engage in corporate social responsibility activities. And the historical perspective on CSR, and there are, as you know, the first classical understanding of businesses are economic, right? Economic model. A business should make profits, okay. And then we can talk about a legal model. They should act in the boundaries of the law, but more and more today we talk about a social model, right? In which we talk about CSR, corporate social responsibility. So how can we modify this economic classical model? Through some philanthropic activities. What does philanthropy mean? Philanthropy means giving away some money to the people, poor people. I mean, like to the poor people, giving amounts of money. In Turkish, we call it bağış, hibe, or sadaka, right? These kind of things, they call it philanthropy. And companies are expected to distribute some of their income back to the disadvantaged people of their society. and some community obligations, right? Let's say there's a need for that in that community to build up a school, and you generally see that a big, rich businessman like to build up schools, like to build up mosques, like to build up some these kind of common community things, right? That people can use it. So this is also a part of CSR activities, and paternalism to protect their society, to protect their employees, to protect their neighborhood, their cities, and their rights. So here, actually, the motivation is that keeping government at arm's length, because government also support these kind of philanthropic activities. For example, in Turkey, if you build up a school as a company, or if you give some money to these kind of philanthropic organizations, you can cut this amount from taxes that you pay, right? So you become a good corporation in the eyes of government as well, because normally government should provide this kind of supports, right? This kind of social supports, but you just take some burden from them and you provide them as a business, and so it helps the companies to build up good communication, good relationship with governments as well. So from the 60s to the present, the concept of CSR has gained considerable acceptance, and the meaning has been broadened to include specific issues like, okay, corporate governance, product safety. Product safety is very important, right? For example, you buy some product, and if it's not safe for the health of you, safe for your health, I mean, it's problematic, right? So there are huge control mechanisms today on product safety. However, back in the 50s, 60s, there was not such a thing, and many of the people had damaged from these product safety issues. Honesty in advertising is a big problem. Still, we have it. Companies like to advertise their products, which is more they actually mislead people, right? In advertising, they don't act honest. It's also a CSR problem. So protecting the employee rights, an important topic. I mean, back in the 50s, 60s, no one were caring about the right of employees, right? They were acting them as slaves. So, but now today, employees have many rights, right? And environmental sustainability, ethical behavior, global CSR, these kind of many topics, specific issues are discussed under the topic of CSR. So CSR considers the impact of the company's actions on society. Okay, this is the number one thing. So how we can make this impact to a positive thing? How can we turn that into a positive impact? CSR requires decision makers to take actions that protect and improve the welfare of society as a whole, along with their own interests. So it says that don't only focus on your profits as a company, but also improve the welfare of the society, improve of the well-being of society, and think of their interest as well. And yes, CSR supposes that the corporations, the firms, not only have economic and legal obligations, but also certain responsibilities to society, which extend beyond these obligations. This is important. Economic and legal obligations, no company can run away from them. Eventually, government has some obligations to force them on legal, right, on legal aspects, and economic aspects is the nature of the business. If a business cannot make profits, it cannot live forever, right? It will bankrupt. However, the responsibility of society, there is no much pressure as that the other ones. So it is something more vulnerable thing, and many companies may ignore these corporate social responsibilities. However, actually, many other companies, so increasing number of companies, are expected to obey these rules, obey and provide some contribution to their society as well. So there is a normative standard here. Normativeness means that not something objective, but in the eye of the society, in the eye of the belief system of that society, of that culture. So that culture, for example, expects from you to do something. It's not economical, it's not scientific, but they expect from you, right? Contribute to them. I mean, for example, if you open up a factory in a rural area, let's say you go to a small city of Anatolia, you go to somewhere and you build up a factory, right? The neighborhood there somehow expected from you to employ the people who are living in that neighborhood, right? Actually, you can employ anyone from Turkey, anyone from the world to employ in that factory, but there is a normative rule there. Because you make an investment to that neighborhood, it's better for you to employ the people of that neighborhood so that you can contribute to these cities, to small cities, their development, their economic development. So it's a normative rule, for example, right? No one can force you to employ the people there. You can employ people from Ankara, Istanbul, Izmir, but generally there is some kind of expectation back then, or some construction is going on a school, on a mosque, and on something like that the community needs, the common product, right, common thing, and they expect from you to support, to provide financial support for that. I mean, so these kind of normative things. Also, for example, the gender equality, these people rights, employee rights things, right? Some of these standards are written, are legal things that you need to obey, but some ethical standards are normative, right? I mean, they are not 100% sure legal obligations on you, but they just something expected by the people living in that city, in that community, in that nation, and they expect from you to obey that rules. This is what it means. So the main concepts. The CSR is developed mainly by Carroll in 1979. He says that firms have responsibilities to societies, including economic, legal, ethical, and discretionary or philanthropic responsibilities. Donaldson then talk about the concept of social contract. He means that the firm and society make some kind of an invisible contract in between them. So there are certain rules of that product, and there are certain responsibilities. It's not a written contract, but there is an unwritten, but can be seen. This contract can be seen. I mean, for example, if you are operating your businesses in a Muslim society, right? You cannot use the product. You're not expected to use the products of, let's say, ham-related product like bacons. I mean, Muslim people do not eat that. So no, maybe not a legal rule with that, but it's a social contract with them, or respecting their cultural, religious things, religious activities, right? Even if you are not familiar with the Turkish context, if you're investing in here, I mean, you should respect their religion, you should respect their belief systems, etc. So these kinds of things are the issues of the social contract between the firm and society. So you are investing something here, or think about that you are a mining company, you will open up a mine in a rural area near the village. So actually you are using their natural resources, the people who are inhabitants here living in there. So in return of that, you need to provide something to them, right? You need to provide some financial support or employ them or something like that. And many companies are engaging in these kind of activities. Then Freeman provides the stakeholder theory. Stakeholder theory says that, arkadaşlar koptum. Şu an duyabiliyor musunuz beni? Can you hear me guys? Şu an duyabiliyor musunuz arkadaşlar?
Hocam çok kesik kesik geliyor.
Şu anda geliyor mu? Şu an nasıl?
Şu an geliyor hocam.
Şu an geliyor. Tamam.
Tamam.
Hemen
Evet,
başlayayım.
şu an geliyor.
İnternet koptu herhalde. Evet. Now it's okay, right? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Then stakeholder theory argues that any group or individual who can affect or is affected by the company, okay, is your stakeholders. And company strategic interests include the interest of these stakeholders as well. So company does not only focus on their strategies, their goals, objectives, but they also think about the interest of their stakeholders. It's a strategic thing. It's also good for the company's success, Freeman says, okay? Like, let's talk about some key issues in the CSR, and then, yes, for example, labor rights, right? Child labor, forced labor, safety and health. So these kind of issues are very important ones in CSR, right? For example, you cannot use child labor. You cannot force people to work like slaves. But in many Asian countries, unfortunately, you can see that China, these kind of countries, very poor conditions are children and people are forced to work, right? And it's against the human rights. Then environmental conditions, water and air emissions, climate change, right? It's an important problem. Actually, we will dedicate most of our time to discussing on that in Sustainable Development Goals as well. So human rights, he says, and poverty alleviation. How can we get rid of the poverty problem, right? How can we create jobs? How can we create public revenues? And how can we contribute to our nation's economic development? Yes, let's look at them, and we will stop here. Carroll defined 4 parts of definition of CSR. So first, responsibility of companies to being profitable, economic responsibility, maximize sales and minimize the cost. By this way, they can contribute to their society as well, because they are creating some jobs for their people, right? And so there's an economic dimension of corporate social responsibility as well. So a company should first be profitable and use that profits for the benefit of their people, workers, and the society. And then legal ones, obeying laws, adhering to the regulations. It's a required thing as well, because government is forcing you to do. You cannot run away from it. And ethical also, avoid questionable practices, avoid wrong things, do what is right, fair and just, and some philanthropic activities. Be a good corporate citizen, give something back to your society. I mean, this is desired and expected. You cannot force companies to do that, but it's also expected from them, right? Law cannot always address all the topics and cover all the problems, right? I mean, governments are creating some law to protect the people's rights, environmental rights. However, it's not enough. So companies also need to put something more, right? Because laws often lags behind more recent concepts and what is considered to be the appropriate behavior. Sometimes lawmakers have different motivations, different ethical justifications. So you cannot just trust the legal responsibilities. You should also have beyond that ethical and philanthropic responsibilities, as you see here. So a total corporate social responsibility is my last slide, is the 4 of these things, guys, okay? Economic responsibilities, legal responsibilities, ethical responsibilities, and philanthropic responsibilities. Yes, this is the end of my lecture today. I will continue this topic next week, CSR, the same topic. Any questions before moving on the presentations? Okay, the first group can present now. Let's see, Ayçanur and Meryem. If you are ready, you can share and present.